Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. My name is Kim Capino, and I've worked with hundreds of teachers, coaches, and leaders in schools around the world through my courses, consulting, mentoring, and membership to help them create thriving and sustainable instructional coaching programs. And I'm on a mission to help you coach better. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you. Ready to take your next step? Get a tailored list of Coach Better resources designed specifically for your experience level to help you coach better today. Take our free quiz at coachbetter.tv/quiz to get started. Today's Spotlight episode is another in our series of coaching case studies with one of my amazing clients, Nikki Hume. She's ES Art Specialist, and her coaching partner, Amber Shortridge. She's a kindergarten classroom teacher. They're both at the International School of Manila in the Philippines. While Nikki was in the Coach Certificate and Mentorship Program, she coached Amber as one of the steps in Phase 3, Grow Community. And their coaching experience was so powerful, I wanted to share it with you here. These case study episodes are designed to share the story of a coach and the development of their coaching program and practice in their unique setting. I am so excited to share this episode with Nikki and Amber with you because the outcome of the work that Nikki and Amber did during their coaching cycle is amazing. All of our global cohort participants conduct a coaching cycle, and it is so powerful to see and hear the coach and their coaching partner process the experience together. Huge thank you to both Nikki and Amber for being willing to share this story on the podcast. In this spotlight, we're focusing on the impact of Nikki and Amber's work together. This is the part that made me tear up when we were having the call. You're going to hear all about how this coaching experience actually helped Amber achieve her professional growth goals after 2 previous years of trying to reach those goals through a more traditional professional growth process. In the full-length audio conversation, we also talk about how Nikki started her journey to instructional coaching, what made Amber interested in being coached as a classroom teacher, what their work together looked like, the coaching skills that Nikki developed throughout this process, the outcome of their work together, what Nikki and Amber think teachers and leaders need to know about coaching, and how Nikki grew so much in her coaching practice, even as an experienced coach in the Coach Certificate and Mentorship Program. To listen to the full audio podcast episode, subscribe to Coach Better wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is a wonderful story of the impact that coaching can make, especially in schools with a formal professional growth process. Coaching and structured professional growth are very different, and this episode deeply unpacks the power and outcomes of a true coaching experience. If you want to better understand the impact of coaching and see and feel what that looks like in person, this episode is for you. And if you're ready to create these kinds of experiences in your school setting, join us for the next global cohort of the Coach Certificate and Mentorship Program, so you can have this kind of impact in your school community. I'll tell you more about it at the end of the episode. Before we begin with today's episode, I want to let you know that you can find all the ways to connect with me via my website, my social media, all of my courses, books, and resources in the description for this episode. You can also find the show notes for today's episode and all of our resources for instructional coaches on our website at coachbetter.tv, linked in the description below. Okay, let's jump into the conversation with Nikki and Amber. But now I want to ask Amber, how did that work feel for you? What made it meaningful? What made it impactful? How was this different from maybe other professional learning or professional growth opportunities that you have had, whether it's at this school or other schools? It doesn't matter where.
Yeah. So actually, I'm so glad you asked that question because this is the thing as well. This is my 3rd year teaching kindergarten. And my first year, my goal was play. And my second year, you have to choose a different goal. So it wasn't play, but my play was still my goal. Like my personal goal for myself was still play because I knew that I hadn't been successful in it. But I'd gone through the whole, it wasn't really coaching, but it was setting a goal, meeting with someone in administration, talking through the goal, reflecting on how you, there were elements that were the same as a coaching, but at the same time, I didn't feel a noticeable shift in my practice in a way that I felt that I was actually achieving the goal. This is the first year where I know that I'm not play will not be my goal next year. I feel like I'm meeting that goal. And for 2 years, I kept trying and it wasn't failing, but it wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I think that is the difference between coaching, where like you have somebody where you're having the conversation, you're having the guiding questioning, right? So like what was so great about it as well as you had mentioned, Nikki, you had talked about how you were asking the questions and you were asking the questions. You weren't giving me the answers. You were having me dig deeper into my reflection. So like when we looked at the data, you were asking me questions. So like, tell me what this says and what's bothering you about this. And so like, what do you want it to look like for you to like have like, to feel like it's like, so I just feel like, yes, we have this friendship, but also I could see the ways that you were coaching in those moments when you were asking me those questions. And really, it really was what we do with our kids, right? But you were doing it with me, with an adult, without it being condescending or patronizing, where I felt valued, where so I think it was like that guided inquiry process that honored me, but also guided me towards growth. And so you had talked about questioning, and I wanted to talk about that because I really felt that also in the process of what we were going through and doing. And I think the other thing too is that we do have a relationship of trust, but I think also your strength is that you are able to, you have no judgment in the way that you speak, in like the way that your face, like nothing. I never felt judged at any time, even when you were giving me like like when you modeled in my classroom, like that time when you modeled in my classroom at the end of the day, after coming to see the way that I was gathering data and how I was engaging in play and talking with children, like there was no judgment. And it was like eye-opening. I think you remember right at the end, I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, it blew, like, I just was like, okay, I see now where I've been going wrong in the classroom during play to best understand and connect with my learners and help them connect with what they're actually learning in play. Like it was just, yeah. I don't know. Did I answer the question? I hope so. Sometimes I can
You
go off.
did. No, that was I so appreciate all of that. And I think your point about coaching, the way you described how this coaching experience was so different than what we might call a typical professional growth process, I think that's really important for us to hear and acknowledge. And I also think that's so valuable for other teachers to hear, because I think that sometimes those professional growth plans, whatever you call it, every school has a different name. Schools that I have worked at have called it a PGP. They often use the language of coaching. And so sometimes people start to think that that's coaching, and you really describe the difference between that kind of, I don't want to put any words into your mouth, but that kind of structured goal setting and evaluation process, and how different that is from coaching. And then the point that you made at that kind of towards the end of what you said about it being a guided inquiry process that valued you and guided you towards growth without any judgment, that's it. I mean, that's it. And so if as a teacher, that's how you felt being coached, I feel like that is a message I would love for other teachers to hear and other administrators to kind of click in their brain about, this is what the power of coaching is. I don't know what else they might think it is, but this is it. And so like stay focused on that thing. Educators like you that are working in schools that are so passionate about the work that they do. And like you said, you kept your same goal for 3 years because you're like, even though you had to have a whole different goal in your second year, in your mind, you're like, I still haven't hit this. You're not going to give up until you get it. And this was the thing that made the difference. And I think that is just so powerful, and really appreciate the way you've described all of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
So that was a very clear distinction from your end as a teacher on coaching versus maybe what we might call like traditional professional growth. Nikki, how was this experience different for you? And you talked a little bit already about some of these things, about ways that you were finding yourself either pulling from the course or pulling from your own experience to like really be intentional about going through the process, because maybe you could have skipped steps because you have this great relationship. Tell us a little bit about how that was different from your end as a teacher / coach.
Yeah. I remember one point, I think it was between the second visit and the modeling, and then we were going to get back together and debrief kind of like my observation, and the modeling had happened just on the fly. So then when I sat down to like kind of plan for that, I wasn't really sure where to take the conversation initially. And so I thought, okay, well, this is one of those times where I'm just going to have some questions, and I'm just going to start with the one Kim always says, which is tell me what's been happening since, right? And then just listen and hear what Amber maybe needed from that meeting. But then I also had kind of written down like a little note that was like, to be sure, like what was coming next, if we were going to plan a lesson together, or, and I just wanted to be open, right, and flexible, like we say, but also we needed to have like, there's a purpose for this meeting. And I think in that moment is kind of a moment for me, I guess, where I felt like I wasn't the teacher in her room. And like I said, like I'm the teacher kids, and we're colleagues and all these like parts of the relationship. But it was where I really had to put on my coaching hat. Like if I wasn't those things to Amber, what would I be doing as a coach? And that in that moment, I think that's when Amber actually came up to my room for that meeting that day. And we sat here, and I didn't have to do anything but listen. And she really, it really unfolded in a way that I anticipated it could, right? Because I was prepared, but I was also prepared if it didn't go that way, right? So I had to do a little more of that, which is different than when you're a teacher on a team working with people, right? And you're the main one facilitating a conversation or a protocol or something. So that felt good to really experience that. And then I think on the other side of it is, like I mentioned, I wasn't doing the work. So like I've been a sports coach for a long time, right? And I currently I do, I'm an indoor cycling instructor. So I'm coaching people as I'm like leading that exercise class, right? But I can't do the work for you. I can only coach you through it. So I sometimes use that mentality when I'm like trying to remember what my coaching hat should feel like in a situation versus what my teacher hat would feel like. Versus if I was in any kind of just leadership role and what that might feel like. So, I think there were moments for me where I had to, I just had to I literally had to like take a breath and step out of, in my brain, the teacher role and be the coach. And I think in that conversation, that's the first time where I noticed how there's our three stances, right? And that even within, and this is something I talk about in my learning journey video, is that there was a time where I realized that Amber and I, in that like 1 minute conversation, went from coaching, consulting, collaborating back to coaching. And we went through each point because of what we were talking about. And it was like this first, that was my reflection that I recorded myself thinking about that. I'm talking about through that afterwards and processing it. I said, like, it's the first time I really realized how that happens. Right. And so to be aware of it. And those were some of my big aha moments, I think, in applying the coursework. But then I was getting to like go through it in real time. Right. Yeah, and that was impactful for me, right? Because that was what I needed to learn, was how to do those things. One thing I did like think about was like Amber and I don't have any like, nor did we need to, but we didn't really have any moments where we were like, well, I disagree with you, or you know what I mean? Or there was like some kind of negative, more negative feeling to it, or like, oh, but also I realized I can't really think of many times, Amber, where I was like, well, you should do this. Right. So I think that if I had said those things and then you were like, well, no, like, I think that's maybe where because I could shift, and I didn't just give advice, which is also something we've talked a lot about in like our coaching cohort calls, was like the big difference between being an advice giver and someone who's just coming for a consultation and actually being a coach. So yeah, but you had to think about those things, right? They don't just happen. So, I was being intentional when I was choosing the questions that might work for what we were talking about, with Amber and her goal. But also you have your set of kind of like, if it's going one way or if it's going in, you have to just kind of be ready and have your like questions there, right? So I had to do all those things. And yeah, that can be a lot when you're teaching full time and that, but I could see how it would be a lot if you're also doing that with multiple people at one time. So there was a point in there, I think I wrote this in my notes, like, coaching requires so much organization. Like that, I knew that, but like I didn't know that until I started coaching someone one-to-one, was the amount of organization you do have to have.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Nikki and Amber. I mentioned in the intro that this part of the conversation actually had me tearing up during the call. The true, authentic learning that happened as a result of this coaching cycle and all throughout Nikki's experience in the coach is what we're all striving for. Being able to see and hear Nikki and Amber talk about this together was such a powerful experience. If you're having conversations about coaching in your school community, this episode might be worth a share. And if you're ready to develop your coaching practice, even as an experienced coach like Nikki, please come join us in the next global cohort of the Coach Certificate and Mentorship Program. The Coach is our academic year-long course and global community designed for instructional coaches or educators who are ready to build a thriving coaching program and deepen their coaching practice. The Coach is unique because we support the development of your practice at the micro and the macro level. We dive deep into your coaching practice at the micro level to help you upskill from wherever you are today. The program is highly differentiated for all levels of coaching experience. And we unpack the development of a coaching program from the macro level so you can see how to make coaching thrive sustainably in your school setting. That's because in the Coach, we work through the Thrive model for sustainable instructional coaching. So you're focused on building a coaching culture within your school while you're developing your coaching practice as an individual coach. We use the 3 phases of the Thrive model: clarity, consistency, and community, to help you reflect on your practice and program from both a macro and a micro lens, with a systems view to ensure you're building in sustainability from the start. The program is truly personalized because we know you're coming to the Coach with your own experience and expertise and your own needs in your unique school setting. So wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you in taking the next step forward, just like Nikki did and you heard in this episode today. Plus, inside our private community, you'll learn with a global cohort of coaches from schools around the world, so you can see how coaching really works in other schools and build your network of coaches. Our global cohorts open only once a year. Get all the details at edurolearning.com/coach. If you've made an intention to develop your coaching practice or your coaching program this academic year, the Coach will support you in taking the next step. Head over to edurolearning.com/coach to get all the details. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you. If today's episode resonated with you and you'd like a transcript of the conversation and all of our other resources for instructional coaches, head over to our website at coachbetter.tv to find the show notes for today's episode, which is linked in the description below. If you're curious right now, if you have questions, please reach out. You can leave a comment down below. You can leave a comment on the show notes. You can join our Coach Better Facebook group, or you can find us on social media at Eduro Learning and send me a DM. I'd love to support you on your coaching journey. See you next time.